Hello, thank you so much for tuning in for this hour, or what will become my hour. I am Angela B. Chrysler, author, philosopher, and diehard nerd. I'm also the owner and founder of Brain to Books, and am the event coordinator for the Brain to Books Cyber Convention. I do want to take a moment to thank Tabitha Barret so much for having me on Reader's Fantasyland, paranormal fantasy and romance. There's something about those words that just, okay. I have never really done an intro video before, and I don't like scripting things because there's a cold staleness when it's scripted. So I'm kind of improvising this. No, I am improvising it. So I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what my takeover events look like and exactly how it's going to work once you sit down with me, and you can decide for yourself if I'm going to waste your hour or not. The first thing I offer is giveaways. I have everything incremented in 15 minutes. So there will be a total of 4 giveaways. I usually throw one right in the very beginning to kind of launch and get the excitement going. And that'll be so you're going to see about 4 to 5 giveaways from me. I spend the first 15 minutes focusing on myself, giving you a little bit of backstory about who I am, what I am, and then I take a moment to talk about my fantasy books. In this case, Dole and Shadow, which is book 1 of the Tales of the Drury series. And then I go into my second book, which is Broken, a philosophical memoir is what I like to call it. And then I spend my last 15 minutes of time talking up my website and going over all the different things on my website. So I want to take a moment now to kind of go over a little bit of all of this. As far as who and what I am, well, that's pretty much all in Broken. I have a very ugly past, and it's kind of one that I didn't think was ugly until I actually sat down and wrote about it 30 years later. And I'm still coming to terms with the fact that a lot of people look at it and think it's unusual. I don't. So that's one of the things yeah, it's different. So I'll go ahead and I'll instead tell you what exactly where my passions are. I am an allurophile, which is the cat lover term for cat lover because, yeah, I love the fuzzies. I actually love all animals. I don't have any pet birds, but I do have wild birds outside, and we're working and feeding them out of my hand. I am an avid gardener like you would not believe. Okay, let me go over the gardens because the gardens are just like, oh my god. So I have like 9 gardens outside around my house, and it's like April 5th, and we just got our first snowfall here in New York, probably yesterday, and we got like a foot, and I'm not happy with this. I'm actually quite livid about it. Like my gardens were all I've got bleeding hearts out there that are coming up, and now they're covered in snow. My lilac blossoms are covered in snow. I have cherry blossoms, and they're in snow. So I'm kind of, well, I kind of got bit with the spring fever about 2 months ago. So in February, I started planting in my living room. My husband is wonderful. So we actually converted our living room to a greenhouse. Not just a little bit, like, the whole living room is literally a greenhouse. So you walk in and it's like walking through a garden. It's just beautiful. So I kid you not, I have like 3-foot morning glories right now growing up my walls in my living room. And I have not a small amount. I have probably, oh good God, I would say probably 800 plants growing in my living room right now. And 30 of them alone are 3-foot morning glories. And that wasn't enough. This morning I planted 6 dahlias. So I am eager for spring. So that's a good portion of my off-writing time is dedicated to the plants, to the gardens, to my cats, to coffee. I love the coffee. And I'm also a musician. That's a very long and involved past. But I sing, dance. About the only thing I can't do when it comes to the arts is draw. I draw a mean stick figure. Oh yeah. So that is kind of what I do when I'm not writing. I do have children somewhere around here, and I parent those every now and then. Oh yeah, and I'm a huge video gamer. We do a lot of video games. But anyway, I'll focus. So that's pretty much what I'm like when I'm off running hours, when I actually do write and sit down and drill myself with that. I prefer focusing on fantasy, but honestly, I'll throw whatever together comes into my mind. I have a science fiction composition I'm working on at the moment, and I suck at science, so I've got my husband helping me out with that. Paranormal and is something that just, my favorite author is Karen Marie Moning, who is, without a doubt, I adore her stuff. I adore her stories. I just love her stories. So I'm right up there with the paranormal. Absolutely adore it. There's a lot of Karen Moning's Celtic influence that carried over to mine. She definitely did a lot to influence what would become the Tuatha Dana in my books with Celtic mythology. So I want to actually swing everything now over to the fantasy side. And this is the part of the story where I talk about my books and the fantasy side. Dolor and Shadow started off when I was kind of throwing a little bit of a tantrum. I had just finished a romance novel, not Karen Marie Moning, and I was not happy with anything about this book. The main character was basically abducted by these godlike, well, these sex gods, and the women very clearly did not want to go, so they raped him, and the women were just absolutely enamored by their rapists. Not once through the whole book did anyone other than the main character even question this. But then the story went on, and eventually the main character, did decide at a certain point that she was in love with her rapist, and I was angry. She was very weak. She was a horrible character. There's just so much about this woman that I hated. So when I threw down this book, I retaliated with Kalan, who is there. That's Kalan. I was so angry. And my favorite rant came from that moment, and I wish she would be strong, and she would be a witch, and a queen, and an elf, and I would name her Kalan. It was like a whole thing. So Kalan literally was birthed from this tantrum that I threw almost 11 years ago now. And what I ended up with was this female figure, this idea, and nothing, absolutely no story, no world, nothing around her. So I had to build up everything around Kalan. So for me, she is the story, which grossly rubs Bergen the wrong way, but everything about me rubs Bergen the wrong way. So Bergen, yeah, maybe we should talk about Bergen. Okay, so there's a moment in every author's life where they're writing, and one day they just realize that it's the characters who are writing the story and not them. For me, this was quite literal, where I got into downright arguments with Bergen over who got to decide which way the story goes. He and I have had many an argument over what's to be done, and, well, let's just say it's a writer's job to create problems for their characters and then throw rocks at them. And that's what I did with Bergen. Bergen didn't like that, and he retaliated. And he went rogue and took over my website. I am not joking. It's everywhere. There's actually this whole thing going on, Battle for Blog, on my website. And one day we're going to figure out who wins this. But, yeah, I've got plans up my sleeve, and it's coming. So, that's Bergen. But Bergen snuck his way into the story. I mean, literally, he opened the back door and somehow slid into Dolor and Shadow. And I'm just like, what the hell are you doing here? Get out. So I got my Dolor and Shadow. The story just evolved into this. Oh heavens. There was a time where I was planning on having Dolor and Shadow be a romance. And, well, I switched it over to fantasy because I felt like, as a romance, it was just not meeting its potential. So it developed into this massive fantasy, and now I've got 6 to 8 books on my hands in this massive story. And it's funny because despite my anger toward him, Bergen is actually the main character later on. Colin intros the story and takes it off with Dolor and Shadow and its sequel, Fire and Lies, which is due out in July. And then Bergen kind of becomes the story, and he runs off with it. And it's just, there's a lot. It's just an amazing, amazing world. So I would like to take the time out during my takeover to show you a little bit more of that world. Show you a little bit more of Colin, and Berrigan, if I must, and probably introduce you to Berrigan's brother, Rune, who is older, wiser, smarter, and far more sexier, so through Berrigan. And I think that's pretty much it. I absolutely welcome questions. I'm really trying to figure out what and right now I'm just like distracted by the amazing red highlights in my hair. Do you see this? Like really, I mean, I know I have red highlights, but you know, if I hit the light just right, I really look like I've got red hair, and I'm just like, gosh. And yeah. So that being said, yeah, I think that's pretty much going to be making up my hour. So, either I or Berrigan will be stopping by within the hour to intro everything and let you know what's going on as far as this other world of mine goes, and we'll get a little bit more into Broken. And I have a million projects going on, and one of them, of course, is the Cyber Convention, and something has got to be said about zombies from space and vampires. That's on my website. That's a blog novel, but I'll talk more about that later. So I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, and I just want to say thank you again very much for your time.